Hi everyone, welcome. It's been a while since the last video. It's been about a year due to some health reasons, but I'm back. And honestly, part of the reason is this mini right here. This is from Artisan Guild, this month's Patreon, this month obviously being June 2024, and it's part of it's like their brotherhood or their Fighters Guild, I think it is. It's the new one. But this sculpt honestly grabbed my attention. It's a badass knight with a two-handed sword and the hair whipping dramatically in the wind. I thought this was perfect for Dungeons and Dragons or Frostgrave or any of those systems. I printed her on my Anycubic Photon Mono, and let's see if we can do her justice today. I've started off with Mechanicus standard grey spray, but obviously the spray I used makes no difference. If you want to do, I recommend just any neutral color. I'm going to be painting over this entire thing. What I'm going to be doing now is going through the process that I normally follow with my Sisters of Battle army, and that is to start off with all of the colors that share a black wash first. In this case, I decided to make her have red underclothing underneath the armor. So I like to follow the Sonic Sledgehammer approach of starting with the lower layers, working my way up. So I will start with the clothing, and I'm going to make that red. I've got one of my favorite colors here, Mephiston Red, beautiful, vibrant color. And for this, I'm going to just go ahead and paint all of the clothes that appear underneath the armor. All right, that is applied and dried. We're going to ignore the water stain over there. Yes, kitties. Sorry, got a lot of cats here with me today. Let's move on to the next color, and that's going to be a nice dark brown. I'm going to do a lighter brown later with a light wash. For now, I'm going to use some Rhinox hide, if that goes into focus, for the dark leather. Hey, there's the culprit. He just caught him drinking my paint water, and that's not good for you, boy. Okay, let's move on. Technical difficulties aside, I've got the Rhinox hide and dark leather. Let's go. So an easy example would be here on the sword. What would that be? The second hand grip, as well as this hand grip. Both of those I will do in Rhinox hide. In addition to that, the boots I will most definitely do a nice dark leather, and what would these be? Bracers? I need to look up my armor terminology. These areas here, and finally the gloves underneath the gauntlets. So let me go and paint all of that in Rhinox hide. Moving on to the first metallic, I've got here, this is Iron Hand Steel. I chose this over Lead Belcher because it's a touch lighter. If you want to follow on at home, I prefer a lighter metal because I am going to use a black wash on everything soon. So obviously the armor. I'm not going to do the sword in this. I've got a separate color for the sword that you'll see in a second. There, she's looking a lot more knightly now. As I mentioned, slightly different color for the sword. I found this. I don't think I've ever used it. Maybe I did like once. Grey Knight Steel. It's like a light silver with a touch of blue in it. And honestly, I just found it in my collection, and I thought, ooh, oh yeah, that is a nice color for a sword. She's nearly ready for the first wash, but first I want to do the hair. And I ummed and ahed a lot. At one point I wanted to do her with red hair, like a Highlander vibe with the big sword. Also thought blonde. There's a very nice painted model. If you look up the Artisan Guild video for the month, the thumbnail has this mini in blonde, and it looks beautiful. I decided to do something different, and I went with Corvus Black. Again, one of my favorite colors. Probably because I paint the Adeptus Sororitas, the Sisters of Battle. but this goes on very nicely. It's got great coverage, and it's not a pure black. So when we put the black wash on it next, you get a lot of great definition. With all of those base coats done, these all share a same wash. In this case, Nuln Oil or any black wash. And I've got some on my brush here, and I'm just going to bucket it over everything. Even the grey that I haven't done yet, it's fine, because I'll paint over that shortly. If you'll indulge me while I do this, I just want to quickly say thank you to everyone who's been leaving comments. I know this isn't a big channel, I've only got like a couple hundred subs, but I really do read and appreciate all the comments, and I'm sorry I haven't been replying. As I mentioned, I did have some medical issues. Oh, actually, it's nearly been exactly a year. It was June 18th last year. I went in for some MRI scans after dealing with some issues and not knowing what they were for quite some time. Went to physio, went to a GP, tried medication. Eventually, I did some MRIs, which led to a very fun stay in the hospital with a lumbar puncture. If anybody in the comments has ever had a lumbar puncture, please reach out to me so we can share that pain. Long story short, I got diagnosed, like I said, nearly a year ago today, with multiple sclerosis, relapsing remittent multiple sclerosis, if you want to be pedantic about it. It was quite funny. Jane, my wife, was there with me the whole time at my side because the two of us knew nothing about this disease. And we went from knowing nothing and actually having a holiday planned for that weekend to suddenly being in hospital for like a week and being told I have something that I didn't even know what it was. So, yeah, I've been dealing with that in and out of hospitals. I haven't been recording, one, because I just didn't have the mental drive to do it, but two, every time I thought I could record and I put the camera on, all you would see would be the scars on my hands from the drips and the blood tests. And it wasn't pleasant. So thank you to Artisan Guild for, I don't know, bringing me out of that funk with this mini. This isn't sponsored. Nothing on this channel is sponsored. But honestly, I love Artisan Guild. I think it was like the second or third Patreon I ever subscribed to. Them and Ve Victus. Oh, they're sculpts. I love them. But yes, thank you for indulging me, and thank you for everyone leaving comments asking for more videos. I do read them. I do want to respond. My brain hasn't let me. So honestly, thank you all. And that's enough self-indulgence. She's washed. Let me put her outside to dry in this wonderful winter sun. And then we'll carry on with the rest of the colors. With that dry, we've got quite a lot of nice detail, and we haven't got many more colors to go through. So I've got a nice warm brown. One of my favorites for that is Mornfang brown. And for this, I'm going to pick out any of the softer pieces. So by that, I mean the belts, just avoiding the buckles if I can, as well as she's got a pouch. And I think other than that, I might go back over this piece of the sword. Leave that dark, make that light. I did forget to mention that it's also for the straps on her arms and boots there. All right, next up, I'm going to use a slightly more tan color. I've chosen Steel Legion Drab here. I nearly went with Xandri Dust, but either or. A nice sandy, tanny color for the armored cloth pieces here. I'll try and avoid the metal that I've already painted. That's why I've used a smaller brush here. And this will be the only two colors that I'm going to use a brown wash for. Those two colors are dried. I also splash a tiny bit of that lighter tan on the sword, just to make it look like there's some, I don't know, some lace holding it together. I've now just got a brown wash, a slightly smaller brush. I'm using Agrax Earthshade here, and I'm just going to wash those brown colors to give them a bit more detail. I'll try my best not to go over onto the armor, but if I do, I'll try and keep it as close to the belt and everything as possible, so it just looks like a bit of a shadow. All right, it's a nice new sunny day. This has obviously had plenty of time to dry. I've left it overnight, but I really didn't have to. I'm now going to carry on with the next part, which is a glaring omission, and that's the skin. There's not a whole lot, so let's get cracking. I've got here a nice light tone. This is Cadian Flesh Tone, although your favorite skin tone will do. And I'm just going to go along and get all of this with 2 coats, because this is a Citadel layer paint, so it goes on rather smooth and thin. Let me do 2 coats of this, and I know this is very light and pale. However, I will be washing it in the next step. I'll do 2 coats of this, and I'll see you in a second. One day I will learn to clean my brushes without messing water everywhere. Okay. Obviously, it looks quite flat now, so I've got a warm wash. This is Reichland Flesh Shade, very tiny pot that's nearly finished. Note to self, get more Reichland Flesh Shade. Got a smallish brush, and I'm just going to apply this over the skin tone for some definition. As you can see, I did do 2 coats. Ooh, that's a bit more what I want. So I'll just make sure that I soak it up and just wipe it off on a paper towel off to the side there. I've got here now Caribou Crimson, which is a nice red shade, and on a small brush I'm just going to apply a little bit of this onto her lips, just to make them stand out a bit more. Sometimes I'll water this down a bit beforehand, or just turn her all upside down to get a better angle, and that just makes the lips stand out a bit. Now comes the hard part. You guessed it, the eyes. I've grabbed a black for this. I just grabbed matte black from the Army Painter because it was honestly the closest one. And I'm going to paint the eyes, including the eye sockets, and these wonderfully sculpted eyelashes. And then we'll go the white afterwards. I'm going to do this probably off camera because I'm already messing. But I'm also going to turn my brush a bit to the side and catch these raised eyebrows. The next step now is to take a white. I've grabbed just matte white here and a very fine brush. I think I've got a Wargamer detail brush floating around here somewhere. And I'm going to just dot in 2 white dots, basically on either side of the pupil. Let's see if I've got a finer brush than this. I'm going to do this off camera, and I'm going to make a mess of it, and then I'm going to clean up after that. Instead of cleaning up after the black, and then after the white, and then after the black again, I'm going to get it right, and then do one cleanup of the face. That actually didn't take as long as I thought. I had to clean up the one eye on the side, but I'm happy with this. This is not perfect. I'm not looking to enter Golden Demon. Honestly, I'm looking to break out of a rut, and I just want to see her finished. So I'm going to pop a base on her and call her done, quote unquote. Do some air quotes on the side, you can't see. I'm going to do a black base, which is what I normally do for my D&D minis. And then after that, I'll come back and do some highlights. So let me show you the finished product as quote unquote tabletop ready. Okay, at this point, unfortunately, my microphone died, so I'm recording this after the fact. But as you can see, at this point, I could have left her there. I could have called her tabletop ready and be done. But I had a lot of fun with this mini, and I wanted to go one step further. So I decided instead to carry on and do some highlights. The most important things to focus on would be the face and the hair, those focal points, and then the rest of it afterward, the fact. So I'm going to grab the original skin tone that I used, Cadian Flesh Tone, one shade lighter, Kislev Flesh, and then if necessary, if you want to go a third step, Ushabti Bone, a bone color is good to go like that ultra high level of highlight. At this point, I put them all on my wet palette, and I started off with the skin tone that I used originally, that Kislev flesh, sorry, Cadian flesh tone. Getting confused now. For this, I first of all tidied up where I splodged with her eyeliner, and then did the nose and the cheekbones. The cheekbones I like to do almost like a triangle or a less than greater than sign. I decided not to try the other cheek, considering it's in shadow anyway. But I did try and get my brush in there for the chin. I'll sometimes highlight one of the lips, but in this case, her lips are red, so I don't want to obviously highlight with the skin tone. And then, because she's got an ear sticking out, I did the one ear as well. Oh, and a tiny bit on the forehead. So that is it for the Cadian flesh tone. Just quickly wash my brush on the side there, and load up some Kislev flesh. The point now for the Kislev flesh is to go and layer up inside where I've already layered. So on the nose, put a much smaller piece, and then after the nose, that same cheekbone, but again, just smaller, just to emphasize that cheekbone. And then a tiny bit on the chin, and we're done. With that done, it's time now to do the hair. So normally with the hair, because I did this black, well, dark gray shaded down to black, I could have gone with some, I don't know, Eshin gray, Mechanicus standard gray, something like that, and done the gray on the hair, but that would look very cold. I want it to be warmth. It's hair. It's a living thing. So I've got Skaven Blight Dinge, first of all, and then Storm Vermin Fur. So these are gray, but they're almost like a little bit of brown mixed in with it. I call it a warm gray or an earthy gray. These I find are much better for living things. I'm going to go along and do some of the areas of the hair. I'm not going to do everything on camera, but just some of the higher levels of the hair. Go and do it with that first, we'll call it warm gray. And then without even cleaning my brush, when I'm done with this, I'm going to load up the next lighter color and go just on the inside. And okay, well, that's way too much on my brush. We'll take a little bit off there. I will clean that up with a little bit of just matte black. But for now, just carry on and highlight the hair. Okay, I've finished with the hair and I've recharged my microphone, so hopefully it works a bit better now. Technical difficulties are the name of the game today. I've got here, what is this? Scrag brown, a nice highlight for the Mournfang brown. And I'm just going to pick out a few of the soft leather details, just the edges of them. Wow, I am very bad at edge highlighting. But this will just make it stand out a little bit. So I'm just going to do effectively like one side of the belt to have a bit of definition. Moving on to some Karak stone. This is just going to be for, what did I call this, the padding type of thing here. Just to make that pop out a bit more. That may pop out too much, but you know what? Let's embrace it. We're going to do bright highlights. I was going to go back to Mephiston Red, but you know what? Evil Sun Scarlet. If we're going to go bright, we go bright. I'm going to just pick out some of the red, just downwards motions, like material, avoiding the recesses, and just making that pop. Now, I'll be honest with you, I wasn't going to highlight the dark brown. I was just going to leave it as is, but we're going bright highlights. We're going to carry on highlighting. Gorthal brown. I don't know a good highlight color for Rhinox hide. I honestly don't. But Gorthal brown would make it look like a very worn leather. So I'm just going to do, what do we see Peachy call this? Like stipple highlighting. stabby highlighting. He's called it a few things, but this is just try and make it look a bit like worn leather. We've highlighted everything else. We might as well finish this off with highlighting the armor. This is Runefang Steel, a nice bright metal color. I'm going to use this for both the sword and the armor. So just the side of my brush, getting that and that. Grab that. The little hilt. Now the difficult part. I'm going to focus only on the really easy to get sections where I can just use the side of my brush if possible. And also just focus on the top of her armor where the sun would hit. All right, I really did go too far with the highlights. I wasn't planning on this. But at this point, now, there you go. She's done, and she's more than tabletop ready. Now, I would happily run her in my Frostgrave warband, or as like a final boss at the end of a short campaign. Uh, Honestly, amazing sculpt. Thank you, Artisan Guild. I really did have a lot of fun with this. So for everyone watching, if you made it this far, thank you. Apologize for the little splodge there. But thank you for making it this far. I know a lot of this video was a bit of a rant and a bit of a personal thing, but I do appreciate everyone for staying with me and listening. On that note, I don't have a Patreon, I don't have a Discord, I don't have an OnlyFans or an OnlyFeet or anything. I'm not asking for your money. I'm just asking if you watch this far, go out there, grab a mini, go paint it. Until next time, everyone.